So, yeah, the majority, yes. Donc là, c'est le chef d'État qui va s'asseoir là. Donc, là, c'est
Yeah, well,
So, yeah, the majority, yes. Donc, là, c'est le chef d'État qui va s'asseoir là. Donc, là, c'est
yeah, well.
As concerned to all of us, the suffering of the population has lasted for too long, and therefore support the initiative to convene this extraordinary summit and hope that Your Excellency will decide once and for all on how to put a lasting end to this current insecurity. We in Eastern DRC in April, May 2012, and ever since the AU has been actively involved in research a lasting solution to the insecurity and instability prevailing in this part of the DRC. The AU has supported on negotiation processes and the implementation of agreements reached by the parties to these conflicts. It is in recognition of the regional dimension of the conflict in the region. A number of instruments and plans of action have been adopted since within the framework of the ICGLR. I must say that implementation represents a challenge. Excellencies, first and foremost, I wish to reiterate that the Peace and Security Council of the African Union has always reaffirmed its commitment to the unity and territorial integrity of the DRC, and therefore would like this to be maintained. Secondly, the AU is also strongly opposed to any attempt at changing elected governments through unconstitutional means, including armed rebellions. In this regard, pressure should continue to be exerted on the M23 and all the other negative forces operating in or from the Eastern DRC to cease hostilities, to cease from acts of violence and provocation, and express their grievances through political means. Allow me to also say that acts of violence against the civilian population and massive violations of human rights will not be tolerated. Thirdly, I urge the DRC government and the armed groups to resume dialogue without further delay and conclude it positively and within a reasonable time frame. The dialogue should address all the root causes of conflict and also urge the parties to respect and fully implement all the agreements that have so far or will soon be concluded. Finally, I'd like to encourage the parties of the region to act in unison and work closely together in the spirit of good neighborliness to support the DRC government in its efforts to resolve the challenges it faces in the eastern part of the country. Excellencies, it is worth recalling that this is the seventh extraordinary summit of this august institution on the security and humanitarian situation in the eastern DRC within 12 months. These summits clearly demonstrate a serious concern about the security and humanitarian situation. We have adopted several decisions to bring an end to the recurrence of violence in the DRC. Unfortunately, implementation has always been a major challenge, and we do hope that the decisions that will be reached today and in the dialogue will be implemented expeditiously. As we pursue our agenda for a united, prosperous, and peaceful Africa, the continuing instability and insecurity in the Great Lakes region constitute an extraordinary challenge that we must work closely together to overcome. The sooner and more effectively we do it, the better for the DRC, the region, and the continent as a whole. So I'd like to urge this extraordinary summit and Their Excellencies to make this one the last and ultimate forum that succeeds in the cycle of impunity, insecurity, and instability in the DRC. The DRC and the Great Lakes region should now deploy their human and natural resources in strengthening regional cooperation and the participation of all their citizens in the development and democratization processes. So I do really hope that this summit will have a new role in the Congo and in the DRC.
Mwenyekiti wa Umoja wa Afrika Zuma, I now call upon Her Excellency Meg Robinson, Envoy Special to Secretary General.
Dr. Lamine Zuma, Chairperson of the African Union, my fellow envoys and representatives, Excellencies. I'm very honoured to be here today in my capacity as Special Envoy and on behalf of the Secretary General Ban Ki-moon, who's asked me to represent him at this important occasion and to wish this summit every success. I'd like to start by expressing my gratitude to President Yoweri Museveni, President of the Republic of Uganda, and Chair of the International Conference on the Great Lakes Region for convening this extraordinary summit. Mr. President, thank you for bringing together countries of the region at this critical moment, an opportunity to find solutions to the current crisis. I'm hopeful that this summit and your agreed outcome will advance our collective effort to address the root causes of the conflict. As the peace, security and cooperation framework for the Democratic Republic of the Congo region, ICGLR member states' support is essential, and your presence here today demonstrates the commitment of countries in the region to advance peace and stability. Today's meeting comes against the backdrop of renewed intense fighting in eastern DRC and growing regional tensions. I'd like to express once again my sincere condolences to the families of those killed in the fighting. Yet again, the unacceptable toll of conflict has been on civilians. I'd like to echo the Secretary General's call on all actors to exercise restraint and refrain from any acts or statements that could lead to a further deterioration of the situation. Excellencies, as you are aware, I am currently undertaking a joint visit to the region with Martin Kobler, Special Representative of the Secretary General for the Democratic Republic of the Congo and Head of MONUSCO, Ambassador Lula Kadiara, Special Representative of the African Union for the Great Lakes, Senator Russ Feingold, United States Special Envoy for the Great Lakes region of Africa, and Mr. Karim Bebeke, European Union Senior Coordinator for the Great Lakes region. The overall goal of our visit is to address the current crisis and discourage further hostilities, as well as to energize political efforts for peace in the region. We have met and will continue to meet before we depart on Saturday senior government officials, local authorities, representatives of the international community and civil society to share the same message. It's now time to actively engage in the political process and to move forward with the commitments that were made in Addis Ababa in February. The Peace, Security and Cooperation Framework is a unique opportunity for the region, and if we let it go and allow tensions and armed conflict to prevail, then the quest for peace and security will fatally derail. We will have missed a unique chance and failed in our collective responsibility. All five of us, as envoys and representatives, are in full agreement on the way forward in dealing with the Kampala dialogue. On the 25th of July, during the informal ministerial meeting convened on the margins of the High-Level Security Council debate on the Great Lakes region, chaired by US Secretary of State Kerry, I was asked as Special Envoy of the UN Secretary General for the Great Lakes region, together with Martin Kobler, the UN Special Representative of the Secretary General in the Democratic Republic of Congo and Head of MONUSCO, and Russ Feingold, the US Special Envoy for the DRC and the Great Lakes region of Africa, to help support the Kampala dialogue and bring it to a swift and successful conclusion. This was reaffirmed at the extraordinary ICGLR summit held on the 31st of July in Nairobi. Excellencies, we have taken this responsibility very seriously. We believe it's necessary to have a principled approach and to align the issues under consideration in the Kampala dialogue with the provisions of the PSC Framework Agreement of the 24th of February 2013, in particular the commitments undertaken in that agreement by the government of the Democratic Republic of Congo to consolidate state authority, particularly in eastern DRC, and to continue to deepen security sector reform by the DRC. And we're pleased to learn that the Kampala dialogue will fully respect these principles going forward. On that basis, we believe that it should be possible to conclude the Kampala dialogue within a very short period. And as special envoys and representatives, we urge all state parties to the PSC framework to support this. Excellencies, in the events of the last few days put to the test the commitments made by signatory countries under the framework. This is now the time for a reality check. I'd like to call on the signatories to respect their engagement and implement these commitments without delay. As you're aware, we have now proposed benchmarks and indicators of progress, which the Technical Support Committee will finalise next week and will submit to the Regional Oversight Mechanism for adoption at its next meeting that will take place in the margins of the UN General Assembly on 23rd of September in New York. These benchmarks are concrete measures that should guide the implementation of the very same commitments which are dramatically put to the test by last week's events. Let me highlight some of these priority areas. Under the framework, the first commitment to the region is, and I quote, not to interfere in the internal affairs of neighbouring countries. We have a number of existing mechanisms, such as the expanded joint verification mechanism and the Joint Intelligence Fusion Centre, which should be used to monitor political and military interference. I'm glad you have agreed to strengthen the expanded joint verification mechanism and to have MONUSCO as a full member of the joint verification mechanism. The second commitment for the region under the framework is to neither tolerate nor provide assistance or support of any kind to armed groups. The existing mechanisms that I've just mentioned should help monitor progress in this regard. Equally, regional and gender-sensitive DDR, DDRR programs should be established for combatants and dependents, with a particular attention to the immediate release of children from armed groups. The international community, in particular donors and the UN, should provide support to the governments of the region as appropriate. The third commitment calls for countries in the region to respect the sovereignty and territorial integrity of the neighbouring countries. The exchange of information on unauthorised cross-border movements through joint security mechanisms should be enhanced without delay. Meanwhile, the joint management of border security, including through the establishment of the joint border control and surveillance system, has been identified as a possible benchmark to further regional cooperation on security matters. The last commitment I'd like to underscore today is the fourth commitment, which emphasises the need to respect legitimate concerns and interests of the neighbouring countries, in particular regarding security matters. One of the key measures to operationalise this commitment is the development of a joint security strategy to deal with negative forces operating illegally in eastern DRC. Excellencies, the elements I've just highlighted relate to the peace and security component of the framework, and the cooperation component should also not be overlooked. I will continue to coordinate with countries in the region, donors, and regional organisations on how to strengthen economic cooperation and make peace dividends more visible for the people in the Great Lakes region. However, I must emphasise that the security situation today in the region is grave, and there's a real risk of reversing all the progress made since the signature of the framework agreement. It requires our focused attention and strong political will. I remain convinced that despite the current security and humanitarian challenges on the ground, the tools and mechanisms of the region, supported by international partners to address these challenges, are present. In the interest of advancing the course of humanity, and particularly to bring an end to the cycle of recurring conflicts in eastern DRC and the region, I urge you to rise to this moment, and I believe that at this meeting you have done that, and activate these mechanisms in order to make rapid progress towards our goals. In conclusion, I appeal to the parties to take up seriously the commitment to the Kampala dialogue with the principled approach that I have outlined, and renewed commitment for a negotiated settlement. You have the very strong support and goodwill of those of us who have been travelling in the region and will continue to do so, representing a solidarity and engagement and support of the international community, and we will continue that support. Thank you very much, Mr. President.
Your Excellency, heads of delegations, first of all, I thank Your Excellencies for coming to this summit at such a short notice. Secondly, this emergency summit was in response to the renewed fighting in the Goma area. Thirdly, although the fighting in the Goma area is the one which is more talked about in the press, there are many areas of Eastern Congo near our border which are infested by terrorist groups, either coming from outside Congo or those from within Congo. Just next to our border, for many months now, in fact years in some cases, the ADF has been terrorizing the people on the other side of the border. A few months ago, they killed a very prominent chief near our border, in a very cruel manner. Opposite Semriki, there is a group called Cobra, a character called Cobra, who has been terrorizing people on that side for almost 1.5 years now. I salute the Congolese army. Recently, they launched an offensive against Cobra in that area, the area near Bunya. I encourage them to continue. There are other areas which are controlled by Interahamwe, the group from Uganda, those are further to the south. Number 4, this generates refugees from Congo into the neighboring countries, in South Sudan, into Uganda, and other countries, neighboring countries. These refugees have been suffering. The parts of Uganda which are neighboring Congo are heavily populated. They don't have wide spaces. So you find these refugees squeezed in some settlements like schools and so on. I therefore would like to use this opportunity to appeal to the international community to come to the aid of these refugees. Number 5, the dialogue between the M23 and the government of the Democratic Republic of Congo has been going on here in Kampala for many months. They have narrowed the discussions. A few points were remaining. And the dialogue we have today with the Congo government, between the facilitator and myself and His Excellency President Kabila, if they are carried forward, we can easily get this group of M23 to come out peacefully, so that the United Nations forces in Congo and the international brigade deal with the other criminal forces which have for long been in the Congo. Finally, I want to inform this conference that I have been watching the African continent for the last almost 50 years. Where Africa takes the lead in partnership with the international community, we always get good results. This is what happened in the revolution struggle in Southern Africa, in Mozambique, in Zimbabwe, in Angola, in South Africa, in Namibia, in Guinea-Bissau. The leadership was always Africa, the liberation movement, the frontline states, supported by the international community. Where the issue of Idi Amin in Uganda, we were able to solve it because of that somewhat similar packaging. Recently, we had the situation of Burundi. We have been able to solve that. So this Great Lakes region, working with the UN closely, can solve this problem of DRC. I don't want to say many things. We have been here for a long day. With those few remarks, I thank Your Excellency for coming here and for participating in this summit as Secretary of the Notice. Thank you very much. We have already finished the closing session. Because here it says, adoption des modèles du jour et du programme. But I think this one we skip. The two is what is closing. So the two dates in two there in the zone du sommet. But I'm saying that with the generation of the sun.
Of the heads of state and government held at Kampala, then on the 5th of September 2013. We, heads of state and government of the International Conference on Great Lakes Region, meeting in Kampala on 5th September 2013, at the invitation of His Excellency President of the Republic of Uganda and Chairman of the ICGLR Summit, to discuss the worsening security situation in the Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo, recalling the decisions made during our extraordinary summit held in Nairobi on 31st July 2013, gravely concerned with the resumption of hostilities in the Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo and the worsening security and humanitarian crisis that has resulted in continued deaths of civilians, displacement, and suffering of the population. Further concerned that this new escalation of hostilities is an obstacle to the implementation of the Nairobi Extraordinary Summit Declaration of 31st July 2013 and a threat to regional peace and security. Having received reports from the meetings and the Regional Interministerial Committee RIMIC on the security situation in Eastern DRC, in particular recommendations on addressing the renewed fighting and consequent security and humanitarian crises, welcoming and fully supporting other ongoing international efforts to address the crisis in Eastern DRC, in particular the UN Framework for Peace, Security and Cooperation with DRC and the region, signed in Addis Ababa on 24th February 2013, the UN Security Council Resolution 2098, adopted on 28 March 2013, and reaffirming our support for the mandate of the UN Special Envoy for the Secretary General of the Great Lakes region, reiterating our relentless commitment to find lasting solutions to the prolonged security crisis in Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo in the spirit of the Pact on Security, Stability and Development, reaffirming our support to the ongoing dialogue in Kampala, Uganda, between the government of the Democratic Republic of Congo and the M23, mediated by Challenge Chair for YCGAR, in line with the decision made at our extraordinary Senate hearing in Kampala on 24th November 2012, commending the entire efforts of His Excellency President Yoweri Museveni, Chairman of YCGAR's summit in the search for lasting solution to security and humanitarian crisis in Eastern DRC, and encouraging him to continue his efforts. Here now cite to one, strongly condemn the recent bombings in Munigi and Goma in DRC that have resulted in the death of senior UN officer attached to the intervention brigade, and many civilians, as well as the injury of UN military officers and civilians, and thus the expanded joint verification mechanism to undertake immediate investigations and provide the report thereof to the Committee of Ministers of Defense on the SGRR as soon as possible. Two, strongly condemn the recent bombings from the DRC territory that have resulted in deaths of civilians in the territory of Rwanda, and direct the TJVM to complete the verification process and provide a report to the chairperson of the Committee of Ministers of Defense as soon as possible. Three, direct that the Kampala dialogue resumes within 3 days after this extraordinary summit and conclude within a maximum period of 14 days, during which period maximum restraint must be exercised on the ground to allow for talks to conclude. The chairperson will keep in touch with his colleagues on the progress of the dialogue. 4, M23 should put an end to all military activities and stop war and threats of overthrowing the lawful government of the DRC. 5, commit to continue exerting pressure together with our partners, in particular the Intervention Brigade, on the M23 and other negative forces in Eastern DRC to ensure that they stop war. 6, accept the request by MONUSCO to have permanent representation in the expanded joint verification mechanism and appeal to MONUSCO to provide logistical support to the EGBM to enable it to carry out its mandate effectively. 7, direct the Committee of Ministers of Defense to develop guidelines for legal and diplomatic protection of officers of ICGAR mechanisms in line with international standards, and develop a code of conduct for officers serving in such situations. 8, direct the Executive Secretary to fast-track the release of the funds donated to the EGBM by the European Union through the African Union, and commit to honor our financial obligations to the EGBM. 9, in Eastern DRC and call on the international community to provide urgent humanitarian assistance, including food, medicine, tents, and any other emergency needs. 10, request the United Nations system to urgently find a definitive solution the former M23 combatants interned in Eastern Rwanda since March 2013. And 11, accept the proposal by the SADC summit held in Lilongwe on 17 August 2013 on convening the joint SADC ICGLR summit on Great Lakes region and direct the ICGLR Executive Secretary to liaise with the SADC Executive Secretary to organize the summit. Done in Kampala on 5th September 2013 and signed by all the heads of state for the Great Lakes region. Thank you, Your Excellency.
From the acclamation, the declaration.
Yes, I masqueraded to be. Yes. When I told you you were in Dodoma.
I was in Mwanza yesterday and then I was supposed to go back to Mwanza today. But I'll go early in the morning tomorrow. Because I'm touring the region. Okay.
So, Excellence, you are considering to support to make closing remarks. Now, I've already made my remarks. I don't want to repeat what I said. I thank everybody, and I wish you good day. Thank you very much.